Thanks for coming out to our town. I'm John Peterson from the Arlington Institute, and you found yourself, of course, in Transition Talks, and we do this every month to try to highlight some aspect of the emerging new world, the extraordinary kind of change that we're all experiencing and going to experience. Let me briefly just tell you about upcoming speakers. John McMichael will be here in about a month. John is a PhD researcher in the healthcare area, and he has invented extraordinary kind of things and works with a bunch of scientists who also have invented amazing kind of things. Larry Dossey will be with us in January. New York Times best-selling author, wonderful guy who big friend of Oprah and all that kind of stuff, and he's going to talk about premonition and early warning. Hal Puthoff comes in February. Hal is a quantum physicist who was nominated for the Nobel Prize in Physics and has been all of his life very interested in extraterrestrial life and propulsion and warp drive and things like that. Joni Patry will be with us in March. Joni is a world-class astrologer, a big force on the internet, and she has done a long-term kind of look.
Let me start with a blonde joke. This blonde from Atlanta, Georgia, diddy-bops onto an airplane with an economy class ticket, and she plops down in first class, and they can't get her to move. And finally, they're about to call security and do the hauling Chinese thing that United does so well. And the captain walks by and says, "I'll take care of this." He bends down, he whispers in her ear. She looks up at him with a startled, dull look, and she jumps up and runs back to her economy class seat. And the steward says, "Captain, that was magic. What did you do?" He said, "I told her first class wasn't going to Minneapolis." Now, there's a point to this story. In this life, we are all that blonde. I'm going to talk about 25 world-changing books, plus a second 25, and then I'm going to talk about 26 clusters of reading that contributes to the big picture. This book by George Will is a masterwork. It is a PhD, MD, everything. This is a huge, huge book. It essentially says the same thing, that Congress has abdicated its responsibility to the federal government, which now makes what's called administrative law. The president, by the way, love him or not, has just passed 2 executive orders that are sharply reducing the ability of the federal government to make regulations without public inputs. Okay, there is pushback happening. This book was Will Durant's original PhD thesis. It is on a level with Plato's Republic and comes to the same conclusion. The education of the individual, teaching the individual to think critically and live free or die, is the core responsibility of honest government. Instead of what we have today, we're being dumbed down and drugged up. I mean, I listened to John's remarks carefully, and what he didn't tell you is that this guy that's coming next month has had problems finding a college student able to think correctly. Beyond this, ethics, not money, is the foundation for a prosperous society.
And now, they and the filmmakers knew what to do. Another epic battle between good and evil. And it reminded me, I'm like, wow, this is kind of a political allegory where we defeated evil. I mean, whether it was Okay, anyway, we defeated evil with the fall of the Soviet Union and the fall of the Berlin, the Iron Curtain in whatever, was it 1991 or something? When 89 was the Berlin Wall, and then by 91 the Soviet Union had dissolved. We won, we defeated evil. And then what? Just like Thor, just like the superheroes, we didn't know what to do. We didn't know who we were anymore, because you can only define yourself as good if you identify as the good guy. You can only maintain that identity if there's a foil. So first it became the Colombian drug lords as the new evil. And then 9/11 happened and it became terrorism, which was supposed to be a permanent war and a permanent evil. And there's all this stuff about the clash of civilizations. But after a few years, people stopped being terrified of terrorism. So I asked the question, why the fixation on CO2? It's convenient. It's a one thing that we can fight and solve everything. The one important thing, the crusade, evil. And those who are on the side of CO2, that's team evil. And we are on team good. That is a familiar way of thinking. It is also a familiar way of thinking to think of the one thing that'll solve all your problems. We've been immersed in such a way of thinking. It's called money, isn't it? It's comfortable to blame everything on CO2. And you see it happening. You see any problem you can think of now is getting blamed on global warming. More tornadoes, more hurricanes, immigration getting blamed on global warming. That and Vladimir Putin, I just read that opposition to 5G, and I also read opposition to GMOs and opposition to vaccines. If any of you are opposed to any of these things, you are a stooge of Vladimir Putin, who through his Russian trolls is sowing dissension in our democracy and causing us to be divided. So here, I don't know, hopefully it seems absurd to you guys that it's Vladimir Putin and Russia that is causing doubt that GMOs and 5G, like to think that it's anything but good. Like, how could that be? How could progress be bad? 5G, yeah, it's like the new cell phone thing. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, basically it's like, putting like a mini microwave tower like every 200 feet so that we can all be bathed in these beneficial vibrations all the time. and not have to plug anything in to have high bandwidth. Life will be great once that happens. And you'll be able to control your refrigerator from the beach. Haven't you always wanted that? Yeah.